Most people assume that once a medication expires, it suddenly becomes useless or even dangerous. But that's not actually how it works. Expiration dates create a very specific impression, that there's a clear line between safe and unsafe. That one day it works, and the next day it doesn't. That idea feels logical. It's also misleading. Because in reality, most medications don't stop working overnight. They change slowly, often in ways that are invisible to the person taking them. And that's where the confusion begins. Imagine you open your medicine cabinet and find something that expired 2 years ago. Maybe it's a painkiller. Maybe it's something you were prescribed but never finished. Now you're faced with a decision. Do you throw it away? Do you use it anyway? Is it weaker? Is it unsafe? There's no immediate answer, and that uncertainty creates hesitation. So people default to simple rules. If it's expired, don't take it. It's a clean rule. Easy to follow. No thinking required. But it doesn't explain what's actually happening. And without understanding that, people either become overly cautious or take unnecessary risks. So let's look at what's really going on beneath the surface. Medications don't expire the way food does. Food spoils. It grows bacteria. It becomes unsafe in a relatively predictable way. Medications are different. They're chemical compounds. And over time, those compounds begin to break down. Not instantly but gradually. That breakdown is influenced by factors like heat, light, moisture, and how the medication is stored. So instead of a sudden shift, what you get is a slow loss of potency. The real issue isn't that the medication becomes toxic. It's that it may not work as effectively as intended. And that distinction matters. Because if a medication is slightly weaker, the outcome depends entirely on the situation. For something minor like mild pain, that difference might not be noticeable. But for something critical like an infection or a heart-related condition, even a small reduction in effectiveness can matter. And that's where most people get it wrong. They focus on whether a medication is safe or unsafe, instead of asking a more important question. How much does effectiveness matter in this specific situation? That's the structural layer most people miss. Because expiration dates aren't just about chemistry, they're about reliability. Pharmaceutical companies test medications under controlled conditions. They determine how long the drug maintains full potency and stability. That's what the expiration date represents. Not the moment it becomes useless, but the last point at which the manufacturer can guarantee full effectiveness. Beyond that point, the medication enters a gray area. It might still work. It might be slightly weaker. It might degrade faster depending on how it was stored. But there's no longer a guarantee. And that lack of certainty changes how decisions should be made. The real issue isn't the expiration date itself. It's how people interpret it. Because in a fully functioning system, the decision is simple: replace it. But in situations where access is limited, that decision becomes more complex. People are forced to weigh risk differently. Not just, is this expired, but what happens if I don't take anything at all? And that's a completely different calculation. In environments where medical supplies are scarce, people often rely on what they have, even if it's not ideal. Not because it's perfect, but because it's better than having no option. And over time, patterns start to emerge. Some medications remain relatively stable for longer periods. Others degrade more quickly. Storage conditions start to matter more than the printed date itself. But even then, the key difference isn't the medication. It's the mindset. People who handle these situations better aren't guessing blindly. They're thinking in terms of trade-offs. They understand that every decision involves uncertainty, but some decisions are still more informed than others. They don't assume expired means useless. But they also don't assume it's fully reliable. They operate in between. That's the shift. From absolute rules to conditional thinking. From always and never to it depends on the situation. And that's what allows for better decisions when perfect options aren't available. Because in reality, most people won't face ideal conditions when making health decisions. They'll face incomplete information, limited resources, and time pressure. And in those moments, what matters isn't having perfect answers. It's understanding how to think through imperfect ones. If you want a more structured breakdown of how to evaluate situations like this, how to think about medications, symptoms, and decisions when certainty isn't available, there's a practical guide linked in the description that goes deeper into this. You can also subscribe if you want more videos that focus on understanding these situations clearly, instead of relying on oversimplified rules. Because when you understand the structure behind the decision, you don't need perfect conditions to make better choices.